The black dog in Virginia. I grew up hearing stories about this massive black dog that roamed the countryside around my hometown. It was always described as being the size of a bear, with glowing red eyes that could see right through you. People claimed that if you met him in the woods, he'd rip your arms off and gobble you down in a single bite. Obviously, I thought it was just a scary story to keep kids from wandering into the woods. That is, until one night when my family and I experienced something strange firsthand. It was around 3 a.m., and I was awoken by the sound of scratching at our front door. My family and I lived on a farm just outside of town, and we get a lot of raccoons and other animals trying to get into the house. So I just assumed it was some critter looking for food. But then I heard my dog, who normally never barks, let out a huge growl, followed by ferocious barking. Then I heard my dad get out of bed and start yelling, "Get away, you son of a bitch." My dad's a big, strong man, so I was confused as to what or who he was yelling at. In the morning after, of course, I had to use the bathroom. I went out to the back porch to get some fresh air, and that's when I saw it. There in the grass, right by the door, was a huge set of black dog tracks. They were huge, like the size of a grown man's hand. There were 3 of them in a row leading up to the back door. But what was really weird was that there were no other tracks anywhere else in the yard. It was as if whatever made those tracks had come straight for the house and then left again. Now, we live way out in the country, so our house is pretty isolated. To top it off, our nearest neighbor moved away a couple years prior. So whoever was out here must have come from a pretty long way away. The scratching sound I heard in the middle of the night had to be some kind of animal, but whatever it was big. It wasn't a raccoon or a bear, because there were no prints. It was definitely not a dog, because there are no dogs around here that could have made those tracks. Then, just a couple days later, news broke that our missing neighbor, Old Man Withers, had been found dead in his barn. Apparently, he'd been bitten on the neck, and an autopsy confirmed it was a wild animal attack. But that still didn't explain what kind of animal it was that left no tracks and could climb up a hill without making a single sound. To this day, I don't know exactly what happened to Mr. Withers, or what that animal was that attacked him. But I do know that whenever I hear a scratching sound at my door in the middle of the night, it's best to just stay in bed. That was the black dog in Virginia. And if you like this video, then make sure to check out more content. Also, if you want to submit a story, then click the link in the description. Thanks for watching. The photographer's last shot. A woman from Denver, Colorado named Alyssa Turney was an avid photographer. She loved taking pictures of the mountains in her state and would often go on long hikes just to get the perfect shot. But on June 21st, 2006, she did something different. She decided to visit a popular trail called Mount Evans. It was a beautiful day, and Alyssa was excited to take some amazing pictures. She parked her car at the trailhead and started hiking up the mountain. As she got higher and higher, the air got thinner and the temperature dropped, but she didn't care. She was too focused on the stunning views around her. After a few hours of hiking, Alyssa reached the summit and took some pictures of the mountain goats that were there. She also took some pictures of the other hikers, and even got a few of them to pose for her. One hiker in particular stood out to Alyssa. He was wearing a blue jacket and a red hat and was sitting on a rock. When she asked him if she could take his picture, he agreed and even gave her a thumbs up. But when Alyssa developed the film a few days later, she noticed something strange in one of the pictures. In the background, behind her, she could see the pale figure of a man crouching down. She thought it was strange, but she had taken hundreds of pictures and figured it was just a trick of the light. She threw the photo in a pile with the rest of the negatives and went on with her life. But a week later, Alyssa's friends and family started to worry. She hadn't been herself lately and had seemed distant and preoccupied. They tried calling her, but her phone went straight to voicemail. They checked her apartment, but she wasn't there. They soon realized that she had disappeared. The police were called, and a search party was put together. They searched the area where Alyssa liked to hike, but they couldn't find any trace of her. Her car was found at the trailhead, but there was no sign of her. The case went cold, and the police eventually stopped looking for her. But Alyssa's family never gave up hope. They put up billboards on the side of the highways near the trail and made regular appeals on the news. But it was all to no avail. Alyssa was never found. Now, the mystery of what happened to Alyssa has become one of the most famous unsolved cases in Colorado. There are many theories about what could have happened to her. Some believe that she was kidnapped, while others think she ran away, but no one knows for sure. Some people even believe that the hiker in the photo may have had something to do with her disappearance. The police have never been able to identify him, and they're asking for the public's help. If you have any information, please come forward. What do you think happened to Alyssa? Let me know in the comments below. Now, this case is still open, and the police are still looking for answers. They recently released a sketch of the hiker in the photo and are asking anyone with information to come forward. Hopefully we'll get to the bottom of this case and bring Alyssa's family some closure. This is a very sad and mysterious case, and I hope that they are able to solve it soon. It's scary to think that something like this could happen to anyone, especially someone who's just out hiking and taking pictures. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to stay tuned for more content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Welcome to my channel. Today we will be reading from the Just No Mail subreddit, so let's jump into it. The wrong hotel room. A few years ago when I was traveling for work in California, I had a long drive day, so I booked a cheap hotel halfway between where I was and where I needed to be the next day. When I got to the hotel, it was one of those super run-down ones that you'd rather not stay at alone. Anyway, I get to my room, drop my stuff off, and head out to go find some food. When I got back from dinner, I noticed there were a lot of strange noises coming from under the bed. I assumed it was just some weird pipes or something. Then I started to see what I thought were little shadows under the bed near the wall. It was dark under there, and it was hard to tell. I decided to grab my phone and shine the flashlight under the bed to try and see better. What I saw made me scream and jump back. There was a guy sitting in the corner of the room under the bed, staring directly at me. He was naked, covered in dirt, and had a little backpack with him. I quickly turned the light off and called the front desk. The guy starts yelling at me, saying that I'm shining a bright light in his face, and he Q&Cs. I told him that I'm sorry, but I'm in my room, and if he doesn't leave, I will call the cops. He starts getting up and making a lot of noise, and the whole room starts shaking. I could hear what sounded like grunting and heavy breathing. Then he goes quiet. I assume he left. A few minutes later, the Do Not Disturb light turns on, and I hear the TV turn on in the next room. I call the front desk again, and they tell me that they will have someone come and check on the room. Still kind of creeped out at this point, but I decide to get into bed and try and watch some TV to calm down a bit. About 20 minutes later, I hear a loud crash and then the sound of footsteps running away. I get out of bed to investigate. Noticing that the sliding door to the balcony was wide open and my curtains were completely ripped off the window and strewn across the floor, I immediately call the front desk and the police. When I tell the front desk what happened, they tell me that I must have left the door open myself, and that they would discount my stay by 50% if I just didn't make a fuss and let them handle it. Tell them that I want to speak to a manager. They connect me to the manager, who tells me basically the same thing. I ask to speak to the owner. They tell me that the owner is on tear right now and that they are the highest ranking person there. I tell them that I don't want to stay there anymore and demand a full refund. They tell me that they will take the 50 off and that they will have someone come and clean the room and that I should just wait there until the cops show up. I tell them that I'm leaving and I need a full refund. The manager gets very defensive and says that I woe and get a refund because I obviously did cause some damage and the other guests may have stole some stuff. I tell them that I'm leaving and to cancel my reservation and that I expect a full refund in my bank account within 5 days, or I will be filing a complaint with the corporate office. They tell me that they are unaffiliated with any corporate offices and that I woe and get a refund. I tell them fine and hang up. I check out and go to another hotel and get everything set up in the new room and go to sleep. The next morning after work, I call my bank and put a stop payment on the charge from the first hotel because they charged my card for the full amount. My bank tells me that it can take up to 5 days for them to investigate and for me to get my money back. 3 days later, I get a call from the owner of the hotel. I answer, and he starts yelling at me, telling me that I've cost him thousands of dollars and ruined his business because I would untake the 50 discount and because I put a stop payment on the check. It bounced and he had to pay a fee, and he wants to know why I did and just take the 50 discount. I explained to him that he offered me a 50 discount after the fact. I had been through all of that and demanded a full refund, and he told me no. He tells me that I am wrong and that I should have just taken the 50 discount. I tell him that I'm sorry, but I don't want to discuss it further, and I hang up. The next day I get a call from my bank saying that the charge was reversed and my money was returned to my account. I never heard from the hotel again. That's the end of the Just No Mail story. If you like this Just No Mail story, please leave a like. If you love this Just No Mail story, please leave a comment and share it with a friend. This has been your host. Till next time, remember to stay safe out there. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be one that you guys have been waiting for quite some time. We're going to be checking out an abandoned high school. We did post a poll asking what type of places you wanted us to check out next. And since there were so many requests for schools, since we haven't checked out a school in over a year, we figured why not? So, today, we are going to be checking out an abandoned high school. A little backstory on this place. It actually closed down in 2013, so it's been abandoned for about 9 years now. I do have permission to explore this place, as the owner actually gave me the key to get in. He also said that if anything has changed from when he last explored it a few months ago, let me know. As we walk through the front doors, which are slightly propped open, just like how we found them, I'm noticing that there's a lot of light coming in through the windows. This makes me think that maybe some of the windows have been boarded up since our last visit here, because the last time I was here it was pitch black and we had to use flashlights. But if you look around, a lot of the windows are completely destroyed. As we make our way into the main office, you can see that a lot of the blinds are missing. There's trash piled up against the walls, filing cabinets, desks. It's really crazy how much stuff is in here. I remember when I was in elementary school, my mom would always tell me, clean your room. And I would always say, but where am I supposed to put everything? And she would say, wherever it's convenient. That's basically what it looks like here, just total chaos. You can see that the fire alarm system is still up and running because we did trigger it the last time we were here. As we make our way further into the school, it looks like there might be a basketball game going on in the gym. I don't hear anything though. Either. These people are really good at playing basketball without making noise, or they're really bad. Because the gym is right across from the cafeteria, we might as well check both of these places out. As we walk into the cafeteria, you can see that there's a lot of garbage all over the floor. A lot of graffiti on the walls. Somebody wrote Class of 2024 on the chalkboard. I guess that whoever did this must have thought that they were going to graduate in 2024. Well, fortunately, you're not going to be doing that here. Look at all of this trash. There are trays on the floor, garbage piled up against the walls. It's disgusting, honestly. I remember back when I was in school, there was always some sort of food fight that would break out at least once every 2 months. It was always the best thing ever. At least once a year, someone would bring hot sauce into the lunch, and we would have a massive food fight. This place kind of reminds me of a food fight. Just all of the garbage everywhere. As we walk into the gym, you can see that there's a little bit of trash on the floor, but other than that, it's pretty clean. A lot of the lockers here have been torn out, but on the wall, it looks like some of the yearbooks are still here. If we take a closer look, it looks like there's some sort of play or musical that they were putting on. Here's a picture of the cast. Wow. So, even though this place is abandoned, it looks like a lot of good memories were made here. The theater is directly connected to the gym. It looks like some of the seats have been ripped out, but there's still a lot of really cool stuff left behind. There's costumes on the wall. Old playbill programs from productions that happened here in 2012. While exploring this place, I found something that I didn't expect to see. While walking through one of the classrooms, I noticed a single dust-covered child's handprint on top of one of the desks. Looking around the rest of the room, it seems as if no one has stepped foot in here since it was cleaned out. So, where did this handprint come from? I have no clue. But if anyone has any ideas, please comment them down below. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. If you want to see more videos like these, subscribe for more content. And if you want to see more content, follow me on social media. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Number 10, The Doll in the Attic. Florida is a very interesting state. It's home to some of the most wonderful and weirdest people on Earth. It's also where this next story takes place. A young woman from Orlando, Florida, inherited her late grandmother's house. The grandmother had passed away suddenly, and the woman was now looking through the old house to see what she could and could unsell. As she moved from room to room, she became enamored with the many antique dolls her grandmother had collected. There were porcelain dolls, rag dolls, wooden dolls, and even a few dolls made out of corn husk. But there was one doll that truly caught her eye. It was an antique porcelain doll sitting in a rocking chair in the attic. The doll was absolutely beautiful, but the woman didn't want to keep it. So she took the doll out of the chair and brought it downstairs to put it in the shed. She planned on donating it to a local charity shop the next day. When she went to check on the doll the following morning, however, she noticed it was back in the attic and sitting in the same rocking chair. That wasn't possible since no one had been up there and the windows were all shut. Had her grandmother somehow put the doll back before passing away? Or was there something else at play? She got closer, she noticed something even more peculiar. The doll was holding a large kitchen knife in one hand, and its mouth was open in what appeared to be a sinister smile. This was not an antique doll to be trifled with. And now for no. 9. But first it's shout-out time. Big thank you to our supporters. Thanks so much for watching and supporting the channel. If you are new here, be sure to join the family. Number 9. The sinister rocking. There have been countless cases of haunted dolls throughout history. There's no way of knowing whether or not any of them are actually possessed by demons. But the stories surrounding them are certainly intriguing. In this case, we can assume that the doll was indeed haunted, and that's why it kept returning to the attic. But where did the spirit come from, and why did it decide to take up residence in the doll? Well, it's hard to say. But when the doll started showing up in other parts of the house, that's when things became truly terrifying. The woman decided to move into the house while it was being shown to potential buyers. And soon she began to experience strange things happening around her. Sometimes she would hear the sound of rocking coming from the attic, even though there was no one up there. Then the rocking would slowly start to get louder and louder until it sounded like someone was just outside her bedroom door. She would always wake up in the middle of the night from the noise, and then run to the attic to find the source. But there was nothing up there except for the doll. Every time she checked, the doll was always in the same position, never moving. But the rocking would continue until the early hours of the morning. This went on for weeks, and the woman grew increasingly tired of it. Then one night the rocking stopped. She thought maybe the spirit had finally moved on, and she could finally get some sleep. But she was wrong. One evening she was watching TV downstairs when she heard the front door creak open. She didn't think anything of it, since she hadn't locked it. But then she started to hear footsteps on the stairs. Slowly but surely, the footsteps began to get louder. And when they reached the top of the stairs, she turned to look. But whatever was up there remained hidden in the shadows. Then she heard the rocking again, this time right outside her front door. She screamed and ran to hide in the bathroom. But the footsteps continued coming closer and closer until they were right outside the bathroom door. She huddled in the corner, too afraid to move, as the footsteps slowly faded away. After that night, she never stayed in the house again. Instead, she found a new place to stay while she waited for the house to be sold. When it finally was sold, she packed up her things and left. The new owner had no idea about the doll or the haunting. She hoped that whoever bought the house would at least donate the doll to a local charity shop. She didn't want it to end up in some sick person's collection. Thanks for watching. Do you believe in ghosts? Let me know in the comments below. See you next time. They say there's nothing more terrifying than a blood moon, when an eerie red glow covers the face of the moon, staining it the color of blood. For some, this lunar phenomenon is a sign of things to come, a harbinger of death and destruction. And nowhere is this more prevalent in the folklore than here in Arizona. For today's scary story comes from the deserts of the Southwest, from a town that sits just south of the Utah border. It's a place where Native American legends of the Hopi and the Navajo still linger, a place where the sun beats down relentlessly and the shadows seem to writhe like restless spirits. It was here in the heart of this unforgiving landscape that a farmer named Jebediah Hawkins lived a solitary life, raising cattle and growing crops in the rich, fertile valley. But one night he found his world turned upside down when he witnessed something truly terrifying. It was a night much like any other. The air was still and hot, heavy with the scent of sagebrush and the distant call of a coyote. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the land, Jed made his way to his field to inspect the progress of his crops, but what he saw stopped him in his tracks. In the center of his cornfield, a group of cloaked figures were gathered in a circle. Their faces hidden in the shadows of their robes, they were chanting in unison, their voices rising and falling like the waves of the sea. And in the center of their circle was a fire, its flames reaching up like desperate hands. Fear tightened its grip around Jed's heart. He had heard tales of the blood moon ritual from the old Navajo woman who lived on the edge of town. Tales of a cult that emerged from the shadows during the blood moon, preying on the innocent and summoning evil spirits. Could this be true? Was he about to witness the summoning of something unholy? He watched from afar, hidden in the protective darkness of the trees, as the ritual reached its crescendo. The chanting grew louder, the fire burned brighter, and then they began to move. In single file, they marched out of the cornfield, each one carrying a burning torch, their cloaks billowing behind them like wings of bats. Jed followed them, keeping a safe distance, his mind racing, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. As they moved, the ground trembled, and the very air seemed to crackle with energy. Suddenly, the leader of the procession turned, and Jed's blood ran cold. Their eyes, glowing like embers in the darkness, met his gaze. And then they were upon him, surging forward, their torches held high. Jed turned and ran, crashing through the undergrowth, the sound of their pursuit echoing behind him. Could hear their heavy footsteps, their voices raised in a frenzy. He stumbled and fell, scraping his hands on the rough ground, but he didn't dare stay still. Scrambling to his feet, he ran until his lungs burned and his legs screamed for mercy. When he finally collapsed, hidden in the protective darkness of a clump of trees, the moon was at its zenith, casting a blood-red glow over the land. Panting, his heart pounding against his ribs like a trapped bird, he watched as the procession returned to his field. Their chanting growing fainter with every step. In the morning light, Jed's worst fears were confirmed. His cattle were found arranged in a perfect circle, their throats cut, their lifeless eyes staring vacantly into the endless blue. And in the center of the circle, a single white flower lay wilted, its petals stained a deep crimson, a chilling reminder of the night's horror. The town was never the same after that. Whispers of the blood moon cult lingered in the saloon and the general store. In every full moon, people could be seen hastily crossing themselves or their homes. For some, the blood moon became a curse, a symbol of the darkness that lurked just beyond the edge of their vision. And as for Jebediah Hawkins, he never stepped foot in his field again. Haunted by the memory of that night and the chilling sight that had turned his world upside down, have you ever seen a blood moon? Let me know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. And if you want to watch another scary video, click here. Thanks for watching. Welcome back, everyone. Here with another scary story. This one comes from Reddit user Mr. Moonlight. I was hiking with a friend of mine in the Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia. We were pretty deep into the woods, just the two of us. About an hour in, we heard what sounded like chanting in the distance. We couldn't make out any words or anything, but it was definitely coming from the direction that we were headed. My friend and I looked at each other and decided to keep going. We figured it was probably just some kids being stupid and messing around. About 10 minutes after that, we came across an old wooden church. The windows were all dark, boarded up, and there didn't appear to be any doors. My friend and I looked at each other again, then shrugged and started walking towards it. We figured that if this place was abandoned, there would be a door somewhere. If there wasn't, we could always just climb through one of the windows. As we got closer, we could hear the chanting getting louder and louder. It was low and guttural, definitely not the kind of thing that kids would be chanting. It sounded evil. As we got right up to the front of the church, we saw what looked like a small crowd of people gathered on the steps leading up to the entrance. My friend and I stopped and stared at them, unsure of what to do. They didn't see us, though, because they were all facing away from us. Instead, they were staring intently at something on the ground in front of them. It was too dark to see what it was, but whatever it was, it seemed to be glowing faintly. My friend and I stood there for a few seconds, debating whether or not we should run away or try to get closer. Finally, we decided to go around the side of the building to see if we could find an entrance. We found one window that was unlocked, so we pushed it open and climbed through. It led us to a small room with a single candle on the floor. The rest of the church was pitch black, but the single flame was enough light for us to see the rows upon rows of old wooden pews that filled the space. My friend and I looked at each other again. Neither of us had a phone with us, so we couldn't call for help. There was no way we were going to find our way out of here on our own. Then we heard the chanting start up again. It was coming from the main altar at the far end of the church. Slowly, my friend and I made our way down the aisle towards it. The entire time we were listening intently, trying to figure out what they were saying. The chanting grew louder and louder until finally we could make out the words. They weren't in English, but they were definitely chanting in Latin. As we reached the altar, the chanting abruptly stopped. On the altar itself, there was a large cross, and beneath it was a small silver platter. On the platter was a heart, a still beating animal heart. My friend and I screamed and ran as fast as we could out of there, making it a point not to look back. That was the scariest thing that I have ever experienced. We managed to find our way out of the forest and back to the car. But every time I hear a bird's heart beating, I and help but think of that night and the evil chanting that still echoes in my nightmares. Yeah, rightfully so. Glad you got out of there, okay? Remind me to never go camping ever again. Remind me to never leave my house ever again. This one really gets under my skin. That heart still beating? Yikes. And the comments are pretty entertaining too. Mr. Moonlight, do you know what kind of forest this was? Because if it was the same type of forest where I camp, I am totally never going back. This is the exact type of shit that would happen there, another user wrote. If they were chanting in Latin, they were probably trying to raise Satan. Dude, why are you trying to give the devil a GPS location and directions to your campsite? Like, put some effort into hiding your summoning circle. You don't want the first sheriff to stumble upon your little ritual. Then you have to explain to him why you have a pentagram drawn out in the dirt and why there's a goat with a missing head laying next to it. Just summon the bastard at home. What are you doing summoning him in the woods? Idiot. Another user? Pretty sure if you walked into a satanic ritual, they wouldn't be summoning Satan in the middle of it. That's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Are you actually trying to say that if you interrupted a satanic ritual, that they wouldn't be in the middle of summoning Satan? Because I'm pretty sure that's exactly what they would be doing. Oh well, it was nice meeting all of you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to check out my podcast. Thanks again, bye. A nurse in New York admitted a man to the ER covered in burns. Minutes later, he was gone. The next day, police asked if they had seen him. They hadn't. And it turns out he'd died in a fire the week before. It all started when the patient first arrived at the hospital. He was covered in bandages from head to toe, his entire body wrapped up like a mummy. As the nurse who admitted him to the emergency room peeled off the layers of cloth, she found that he had second-degree burns all over his body. Clearly, this man needed treatment fast, so she immediately called for help. The medical team quickly got to work, rushing the patient into surgery. But after they took one look at him, they knew there was nothing they could do. The burns were too extensive. There was no saving him. But that wasn't even the strangest part, because minutes after he was admitted to the hospital, after the nurses and doctors had barely even laid eyes on him, he was gone. It wasn't long after that the police showed up asking if anyone had seen him, but by then, no one had. They sent him straight back to the operating room, and he disappeared. When the medical team came out, they told the police that they'd just gotten a body. And if you're thinking, well, maybe they just didn't realize he was dead until he went to surgery, well, hold your horses, because that's not what happened at all. In fact, the doctors were shocked when the patient suddenly sat up on the operating table. But he only did this for a few seconds. Then he looked around wildly before he collapsed again, and the medical staff rushed to his side. They tried their best to save him, but they couldn't. The poor man was already dead. The doctors and nurses were completely baffled. How could he have been alive, then dead, then alive again? The man had suffered second-degree burns on 90% of his body, which is absolutely horrific. This kind of injury isn't just painful, it can also make your heart stop beating. But when paramedics arrived on the scene, his heart was still going strong, even though it didn't appear that he had any major internal injuries. And while it's true that sometimes people who suffer severe burns can go into shock and even die, that usually happens within a matter of hours. This guy was actually conscious when the nurse first brought him into the hospital. He'd even answered questions and gave his name. At one point, he even asked for water and took some sips. And then he flatlined right in front of everyone. Doctors and nurses stood by helplessly as they watched him die. To this day, no one has been able to figure out how this man was even alive. His skin was severely damaged, and he'd suffered what is essentially a full-body sunburn. His temperature was also really high, which is another sign that someone isn't doing so good. Not only that, but the poor guy had no memory of who he was or how he ended up in such bad shape. So what was a doctor to do? Well, they patched him up and sent him to the intensive care unit, where he spent 5 days hooked up to machines, keeping him alive. But the question still remains, how was he even alive in the first place? Well, we may never get an answer. But what we do know is that when the doctors were finally able to remove the bandages, they discovered something strange. The burns were shaped like letters. Someone had spelled out SOS on his chest, help me on his stomach, and please on his back. Although it's unclear what happened to him, police eventually learned that he died in a house fire the week before he showed up at the hospital. But how he managed to survive the initial blaze and then wander around for days without anyone noticing is a complete mystery. Some believe he could have gotten confused and wandered into the wrong hospital. But if that were true, surely somebody would have noticed that he had no face and was covered in second-degree burns. Maybe it was a case of mistaken identity. Perhaps he wasn't supposed to be at that hospital at all, but somewhere else. If you think you have the answers, please share them below. What do you think happened here? Rest in peace, mysterious man. This is the scariest place in Louisiana. Locals say that every single night a grave in this cemetery moves by itself. Are we going to find out if this is true? Yeah, we're going to St. Louis Cemetery. No, one in New Orleans, Louisiana. This is where all the action happens. It's not just a rumor. People have actually seen this grave move with their own eyes. Apparently, it slides about 3 to 6 feet every single night. But why does it do this? Well, there are 2 possible reasons. The first reason is the most likely. It has to do with the type of soil that's found in this area. In this area of Louisiana, the soil is so saturated with water that coffins can float. Yep, you heard me right. When a coffin is buried in this type of soil, eventually the wood breaks down and the body decomposes. Then what happens? Well, when the body decomposes, the coffin begins to float up to the surface. Eventually, the coffin will be completely above ground and people will see it. Sometimes this happens really fast, and sometimes it takes years. Now, I couldn't find any evidence of this happening at this cemetery, but I did find an article from the local newspaper from back in 1984. It's talking about how people were finding graves that were popping up out of the ground in the middle of the night. So it is possible that this is happening. But there is another explanation. Some people believe that there is a ghost that is haunting this cemetery. Some even go as far as to say that this cemetery is haunted by the ghost of a woman who is buried alive. Imagine being buried alive. That would be terrifying. If you were buried alive, you would probably start to float up towards the surface as well. This is just a legend. But it could also explain why the graves are moving. There are many famous people that are buried here, like jazz musician Buddy Bolden and voodoo priestess Marie Laveau. She is one of the most famous people to ever be buried here. If you want to know more about her, I made a whole video about her, so make sure to check that out. But she could be the one haunting this cemetery, or maybe she isn't haunting it and people are just making things up. I couldn't find any evidence of this happening, but there were some pretty spooky things that happened while I was filming this video. For example, this little girl. I didn't see her at all while I was filming, but when I went to look through the footage later, I saw her standing right behind me. Also, I kept hearing this weird noise in the background while I was filming, but I couldn't figure out what it was. Then, when I looked through the footage, I realized that it was this black cat meowing at me. I don't think these are black magic, but maybe this cemetery is haunted after all. I didn't see any graves moving, but I did find a grave that had recently been dug up. I'm not sure if someone dug it up, or if the ground just gave way, but it was pretty creepy to see. If you want to visit for yourself, it is open to the public from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 7 days a week. It is free, but donations are appreciated. I do recommend visiting because it is such a beautiful place. Just imagine all the history that is packed into this small space. Hundreds of years of history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. Also, make sure to subscribe so you can join us next time. Bye. A gas station clerk was stocking shelves. Late one night when he realized there was someone in the store who shouldn't be there. How did he find out? You'll want to hear this story before we reveal it. It all happened at about 3 a.m. The man had been working the overnight shift at a gas station in Illinois for many years. It was so quiet most nights that he could hear a pin drop. But this particular night was different. He was cleaning shelves in the front of the store when he looked up at the security mirror and saw someone standing right behind him. That's when he knew he wasn't alone. He turned around slowly and kept his eye on the person. He wanted to get a good look at who it was. But when he did, the aisle was empty. Startled by what he had seen, he went to check the security footage. After reviewing the tape, he couldn't believe his eyes. In the video, you could clearly see a shadowy figure standing in the aisle. The man looked back at the mirror and noticed something. The shadowy figure he had just seen was on the other side of the mirror. In other words, the mysterious figure was nowhere near him. The man was understandably shaken by this experience. To calm his nerves, he decided to go to the bathroom and splash some water on his face. But while he was gone, the mysterious figure appeared again in the security footage. This time, it was rummaging through the contents of a nearby shelf. He watched as the mysterious figure took items off the shelf and put them into a bag. At first, he couldn't understand why anyone would be doing this. Then it dawned on him. The person in the security footage wasn't trying to steal the items. He was just putting them back where they belonged. At that moment, the man felt a rush of relief. He then went to the security footage to find out who the mysterious figure was. There, he saw the truth. It was just a teenager. He remembered seeing the boy around the store from time to time. He was always polite and respectful. He never caused any trouble, and the man had never had an issue with him in the past. Still, he didn't know how to approach the situation. What should he do? On one hand, he wanted to confront the boy and ask him what he was doing. On the other hand, he didn't want to cause any trouble. Just then, the boy appeared in the security footage again. He was walking towards the front of the store. The man watched as he approached the counter. The bell above the door chimed, and the boy walked in. The man was startled by how normal the boy looked. Could not believe that just moments ago he had been rummaging through the shelves like a wild animal. When the boy got closer, the man finally got a good look at him. He could see his face clearly for the first time. The boy was smiling and waving at him. He looked happy and excited. "Hi," the boy said. "Can I help you?" the man asked. He was still in shock. He couldn't believe that the boy was actually talking to him. "Sure," the boy replied. "I need some help finding something." The man nodded. He was still in shock. He couldn't believe that the boy was actually talking to him. "What is it?" he asked. The boy smiled and pointed to the shelves. "What's behind you?" the man said. The boy was standing behind him, looking at the shelves. At that moment, the man realized that the boy had been trying to help him. He had been putting the items back on the shelves so that they would look nice for customers. Overwhelmed with emotion, the man couldn't help but smile. He thanked the boy for his help and told him how much he appreciated it. The boy blushed and quickly replied, "No problem, sir. I just wanted to help." From that day forward, the two became friends. The man learned that the boy's name was Alex and that he lived nearby. Every night when the man was stocking shelves, Alex would come over and help him. Together, they would put away items, organize the shelves, and make sure the store was ready for customers. The man was so grateful for Alex's help. He knew that he couldn't have done it without him. Alex was a true friend, and he was always there to lend a hand. The man knew that he could always count on Alex, and he was so thankful for his help. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe for more content like this. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today, we will see a very interesting short story. A driver in Texas picked up a hitchhiker on a stormy night. As they drove along, the woman said, "Thanks for the ride. You should check on your mother." "She's probably worried sick about you being out in this weather," the man replied. "My mother lives 200 miles away. Why would she be worried?" The woman said, "Because you never told her you'd be out tonight, and she's probably worried sick about you." The man thought for a moment. "You're right," he said. "I should call her." So he took his phone out of his pocket and dialed his home number. His mother's worried voice answered the phone. "Where are you? Haven't you called me? I was getting so worried." He said, "Mom, I'm sorry. I got caught up with some things and didn't mean to make you worry. I'm on my way home now and should be there in about an hour." "Oh, that's good," his mother said. "I'm so glad you called. I wasn't worried or anything. I just wanted to let you know that your sister called and asked if you could come over for dinner tomorrow." The man turned to the woman in the passenger seat and said, "See? I told you my mother would be worried sick about me." The woman smiled and said, "That reminds me, you should probably check on your sister. She's probably worried sick about you not coming over for dinner." The man laughed and said, "She's probably not worried at all. I never told her I'd be over for dinner tomorrow, but I'll call her now." So he took his phone out of his pocket again and dialed his sister's number. His sister's surprised voice answered the phone. "Hey, what's up?" the man said. "Hey sis, sorry to call you like this, but I wanted to let you know that I'm not going to make it over for dinner tomorrow. I have a long drive, so I'm going to stop by McDonald's on the way home and get some food and then go straight to bed." "Oh, that's okay," his sister said. "We were just about to leave to go get you. Mom and Dad are going out for the evening, so it's just going to be us." "Oh, okay. Tell them I said thanks for inviting me and tell them I'm sorry I couldn't make it." The man ended the call and turned to the woman in the passenger seat. "See, I told you my sister was probably worried sick about me." The woman smiled again and said, "Well, you've never told her you'd be over for dinner tomorrow, so how about checking on your father? He's probably worried sick about you not coming over." The man laughed and shook his head. "She's got me there. I'll call him." This time, when he picked up the phone, a deep voice answered. "Yeah, what is it?" the man said. "Hey, Dad, it's me. Listen, I'm really sorry, but I won't be able to make it over for dinner tomorrow. I have a long drive and I'm really tired. I'm just stop by McDonald's and get something to eat and then go straight to bed." "Oh, okay," the voice said. "Your mother and I were just about to leave to pick your sister up. We'll just cancel our dinner plans." "No, that's okay. You go ahead and pick her up." "I'm really sorry, but I'm too tired to drive all the way back." "Tell Mom and Dad I said, thanks for inviting me, and tell them I'm sorry I couldn't make it." The man ended the call and turned to the woman in the passenger seat. "See, I told you my dad was worried sick about me." The woman looked at him for a moment and then burst out laughing. When she finally stopped laughing, she said, "You know, you're the funniest guy I've ever met." "What do you mean?" the man asked. The woman explained, "I'm sorry, but you were never in any danger. Your mother, your father, and your sister, they were all in on this. They paid me to come up with a plan to get you to call them and check up on them. They all wanted to spend more time with you, but they didn't know how to go about it, so they hired me. It was the best money I've ever made." The man was stunned. "I can't believe I fell for it," he said. Then he started laughing. "Well, that was fun," he said. "How much do I owe you?" The woman smiled. "Oh, you don't owe me anything," she said. "Your mother already paid me." And with that, she got out of the car and disappeared into the rain. Friends, this was the story of the hitchhiker who knew too much. If you liked the video, then press the like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, share this video with your family and friends. Thank you for watching the video till the end. See you in the next video.